So it's fall, which means it's time to start planting your fall bulbs. You definitely want to get them in the ground a couple of weeks before a hard freeze. So here in the next couple of weeks, you're going to be wanting to plant your bulbs. These happen to be narcissus bulbs, also known as daffodils. You want to plant them about 6 inches deep in the fall, so they'll come up in the spring. I actually have some of these. I'm going to be stopping by and visiting a few clients and bringing them a bag with some narcissus bulbs. So if you'd like to have some of these, let me know. I'd be happy to swing by and bring some to you. So I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but winter is just around the corner. We had a hard frost this last weekend, so now is the time to do all those chores around the house that need to be done before winter. If you have any drafts, this is the time to go ahead and caulk around your windows and doors. It's still warm enough during the day if you need to do any touch-up paint outside. It's also a good time to start cleaning out your gutters. You might want to wait another week or two until the trees finish losing their leaves, but you want to clean your gutters out, close your crawl space vents, and of course you want to get your heating system cleaned, serviced, and inspected. You want to set that up now because the heating guys get really busy this time of year. I know we've had really good luck with Circle Plumbing. They're a great company. There are several others out there that can come and look at your furnace or your boiler and make sure they're ready for winter. So as I mentioned, we did have a hard frost this weekend, which means it's time to start harvesting the delicate vegetables. So for instance, I'm going to take the zucchini inside, and the chard and all the other vegetables that are delicate. Now my kale, which is most of my garden because it grows really well in Alaska, I'm going to go ahead and leave most of it until after a hard freeze because it does really well. I'm going to take out the chard and the beets though. Here, Cooper, would you start cutting some kale? Go ahead, Celeste. So the kale, I take the bottom leaves and work up. I'm going to leave the plants to continue to grow. I've even harvested them under snow before, so kale's really, really hardy. But I'm going to take a few leaves so I can show you how I like to process kale for the winter. So I like to use the kale for a lot of purposes. We'll chop it up and use it in bean and kale soup. We'll make kale pizza. I'll do kale omelets. There's a lot of uses for kale. Kale chips are great. But I also want to be able to preserve it for the winter. I've got a lot of kale out there. So what I do with most of my kale is I rinse the leaves, I strip them off of the stems, and then I take the kale and I put it in the food processor. Once I fill up the food processor, I'm going to process it until it looks kind of like parsley flakes. And I'll show you that here in a moment. I process it, let it dry a little bit, and then I go ahead and put it in the freezer for the winter. Put it in jars or put it in Ziploc bags, and from then I have great little kale flakes that I can add to soups, I can add them to stews, I can add them to scrambled eggs, pasta dishes, smoothies. They're a great way to add extra nutrition to anything that you might be cooking that could call for a tablespoon or two of kale flakes. So as you can see, I've now processed the kale flake leaves into kale flakes in the food processor. So we just usually spread this out on some paper towels to dry for a few hours, and then all we do is put it in a jar or in a Ziploc bag and we freeze it, and we can use it for the next 8 months. And it is a really great addition to add some extra nutrition into a lot of the meals you may be cooking.